We all know the story. It lives deep within our collective imagination, a tale told and retold until it feels as real as the tides. A grizzled pirate with a patch over one eye and a parrot on his shoulder stands on the shore of a forgotten island. In his weathered hands, he holds a map. It is made of old parchment, its edges curled and stained by salt water. A dotted line snakes across the paper, past strange landmarks like Skull Rock or Whispering Palms. And at the end of that line, a large, dramatic X marks the spot. This is where the treasure lies, buried deep beneath the warm sand, waiting for someone to find it. This image is a powerful one. It speaks of adventure, of secrets, and of riches beyond our wildest dreams. We have seen it in countless films, read it in beloved books, and perhaps even drawn our own treasure maps as children. The idea of a chest, heavy with gold doubloons, sparkling jewels, and priceless artifacts, is a fantasy that has captured hearts for generations. The allure of this legend is undeniable. It transforms pirates from mere criminals into something more romantic, into guardians of a hidden world of wealth. But as with many of our most cherished stories, it's important to ask a simple question. Is it true? Did pirates, those fearsome raiders of the high seas, really spend their time digging holes on deserted islands to hide their ill-gotten gains? The simple and perhaps surprising truth is this: the vast majority of pirates did not bury their treasure. The iconic scene of a pirate crew digging on a sandy beach is almost entirely a work of fiction. Historians who have spent their lives studying the golden age of piracy, a period roughly from the 1650s to the 1730s, have found very little evidence to support this popular belief. The pirate's life was one of immediate and often brutal reality. It was not a life that lent itself to long-term financial planning or the patient act of hiding wealth for a distant future that would likely never come. So, where did this powerful myth come from? The answer lies in the power of storytelling. A few isolated, dramatic incidents were seized upon by writers and storytellers, who then magnified them into a universal truth. If pirates were not burying their treasure, what were they doing with it? The answer is simple. They spent it. And they spent it as quickly and as lavishly as they could. After a successful raid, a pirate ship would sail to a friendly, or at least tolerant, port. As soon as the anchor was dropped, the careful division of the spoils would begin. Pirate ships were surprisingly democratic. Once the gold, silver, jewels, and other valuable goods were divided, a wild celebration would often erupt. The money flowed like water. Pirates would spend their earnings on fine food, expensive clothing, and vast quantities of alcohol. For these men, many of whom came from lives of poverty and oppression, this was the entire point of piracy. It was not about accumulating wealth for a comfortable old age. It was about experiencing a brief, glorious period of freedom and excess. To truly understand why pirates spent their money so freely, we must look at the nature of their lives. A pirate's career was almost always short and brutal. The golden age of piracy lasted only a few decades, and the career of an individual pirate was often measured in months, not years. The dangers they faced were immense and constant. They were hunted relentlessly by the navies of powerful nations like Britain and Spain. If captured, the penalty was almost always death by hanging, a public and humiliating end. Beyond the threat of the law, the sea itself was a formidable enemy. Wooden ships were vulnerable to catastrophic storms that could appear with little warning, tearing masts apart and sending the vessel to the bottom of the ocean. Given this constant, looming presence of death, the pirate's mindset becomes clear. Why save for a future that would almost certainly never arrive? Their philosophy was one of carpe diem, seize the day, in its most extreme form. While it's true that the vast majority of pirates didn't actually bury their treasure, contrary to popular belief fueled by countless tales and legends, history does offer a few rare and, honestly, pretty fascinating exceptions. These weren't the norm at all, not even close. They were really isolated cases, usually driven by very specific and often desperate circumstances, moments of crisis that forced their hand. These instances stand out precisely because they defy the typical pirate narrative. When a pirate did decide to bury his loot, it was almost never part of some long-term retirement plan, a nest egg for their golden years, or anything like that. More often, it was just a short-term emergency measure, a temporary solution to an immediate problem. It was an act born not out of foresight, careful planning, or dreams of future luxury, but out of fear and necessity, a reaction to the harsh realities of their dangerous lives. One of the main reasons a pirate might bury treasure was, believe it or not, to hide it from his own crew. It might seem counterintuitive, but internal conflict and mistrust were common on pirate ships. The democratic nature of a pirate ship, with its strict articles for sharing plunder, meant that a captain couldn't just keep the lion's share for himself, hoarding the wealth while his crew risked their lives. But honestly, this act was filled with chilling peril, a gamble with incredibly high stakes. The secret of where the treasure was buried became a dangerous burden, a heavy weight on the pirates' shoulders. The more people who knew about it, the greater the chance of betrayal, mutiny, or even a swift and silent demise at the hands of a greedy comrade. The knowledge was both power and a curse. If we are to point to a single source for the enduring myth of buried pirate treasure, a legend that continues to capture imaginations centuries later, we must look to the strange and controversial case of Captain William Kidd. Kidd's story is a complicated one, filled with twists and turns, allegiances and betrayals. He started his career not as a pirate, but as a privateer, a subtle but significant distinction in the eyes of the law. He was initially commissioned to hunt pirates, blurring the lines between lawful seafarer and outlaw. Facing arrest and trial, facing the very real prospect of imprisonment or worse, Captain Kidd knew he was in serious trouble. The tide had turned against him, and former allies were now potential enemies. In a desperate attempt to bargain for his freedom and prove his supposed innocence, he sailed to a location near Long Island, New York, seeking a safe haven and a chance to clear his name. There, on Gardiner's Island, a place of relative seclusion, he met with the island's owner, John Gardiner, hoping to strike a deal that would save him from the gallows. Kidd entrusted a significant amount of treasure to Gardiner for safekeeping, burying at least some of it with Gardiner's knowledge, hoping that the act of concealment would protect his assets from seizure. This wasn't just a small cache of coins. It was a substantial fortune, accumulated over years of seafaring. His plan was to use this treasure as a bargaining chip, a tangible proof of the wealth he could offer the authorities in exchange for a pardon, a way to buy his way out of the accusations leveled against him. Kidd's plan failed spectacularly, crumbling under the weight of political intrigue and public opinion. The authorities were not interested in making a deal, viewing him as a dangerous criminal who deserved punishment, not negotiation. Kidd was sent to London, where he was paraded as a spectacle, put on trial, and ultimately found guilty of piracy and murder, despite his pleas of innocence. He was hanged in 1701, a public execution designed to send a message, and his body was displayed in a cage over the River Thames as a grim warning to other would-be pirates, a stark reminder of the consequences of defying the crown. As the moon climbs high in the sky, casting its gentle glow upon the world, and as the sounds of the day fade into the quiet of the night, we can allow the thrilling, chaotic images of pirate fiction to gently fade away. Let the swashbuckling adventures, the clashing swords, and the thunderous cannons recede into the background. We can replace the frantic digging for chests overflowing with gold, and the desperate, frantic chases across tropical islands with a calmer, more thoughtful picture. A picture painted with the subtle hues of reality, rather than the bold strokes of imagination. The truth about pirates, as we have seen through our exploration, is not a simple story of hidden chests and cryptic maps leading to unimaginable riches. It is a much more human story, a complex tapestry woven with threads of desperation, survival, and the choices people make when faced with impossible odds. It is a story about people living desperate lives in a dangerous world, navigating treacherous waters, both literal and metaphorical, making choices that made sense to them in the moment, even if those choices seem incomprehensible to us now. There is a quiet lesson in this, a subtle understanding that whispers from the pages of history. The legend of buried treasure, the promise of instant wealth and eternal happiness, is undeniably exciting. It fuels our imaginations and provides an escape from the mundane. But ultimately, it is a fantasy, a construct built upon the foundations of long-term planning and delayed gratification, concepts that were often foreign to the pirate's existence. The reality of the pirate's life was the opposite. It was about living entirely in the present, seizing opportunities as they arose, and making the most of each fleeting moment. And so, as you drift towards sleep, let the allure of the treasure map fade from your mind. You can let go of the X that marks the spot, the symbol of a quest that never truly existed. Instead, picture a wooden ship, its silhouette gently swaying, anchored in a quiet Caribbean cove under a breathtaking blanket of stars. The treasure is not buried in the sand below, waiting to be unearthed. It is being shared on the deck above, a fleeting moment of wealth, camaraderie, and shared experience in a short and perilous life. There is no map to find, no puzzle to solve, no grand adventure to embark upon. There is only the gentle rocking of the ship on the tide, the soft murmur of voices, and the quiet, cautionary truth of a story that is stranger and ultimately calmer than any fiction.